With the World Cup approaching in the summer and a lot of teams vying for that coveted gold trophy, that 7-game tournament trophy, as Ronaldo calls it, was actually the topic of this video. Now, Portugal have a very deep and talented squad. They have an abundance of talent. They are one of the favorites to win the World Cup, but they're not as favorited as maybe they should be. And I believe one of the reasons for that is the continued presence of Ronaldo in the starting lineup. So we will be discussing that today, seeing the pros and cons of having him, obviously. Should he be starter? Should he be on the bench? Etc., etc.
And with that being said, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Basement Ballers. It's me, Ibrahim, and today we're going to be talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the hottest topics in world football today. Is his presence for this Portugal team vital for winning the World Cup, or does he actually serve as a hindrance for this very talented Portugal side? Brahim, take it away.
So what prompted this, discussion in my head, the reason why I want to talk about it is because recently we had an incident in the qualifiers where Portugal did play Ireland and they lost 2-0 with Ronaldo starting. Obviously, he did get sent off, did the whole crying, wah thing, whatever, okay. But the next game after that, he doesn't play. Obviously, Armenia is not a great team by any degree, but they did also beat Ireland, who beat Portugal a few days ago, and they lost 9-1 to Portugal with Ronaldo not playing. And it's been a trend recently in the last couple of years, especially since I'd say 2020, where there's been a lot of games that Portugal play that when Ronaldo doesn't play, they tend to perform way better. Even in games that Ronaldo does play, it's not that they don't win, but their performances tend to drop off more. For example, this Armenia game, I believe personally, say Ronaldo plays, they still win, but it would not have been 9-1. Maybe like a 3, maybe 4-1. It doesn't end 9-1. And I personally think Ronaldo is hindering the attack more than he is helping it.
So, I believe that first of all, Ronaldo's contributions to Portugal are strictly at this moment in time goal scoring. He's not really pressing for you. Obviously, given his age, he's still an aerial threat, a goal scoring threat. But like you said, Portugal, even without Ronaldo's goal scoring threat, managed to score 9 against Armenia. Regardless of what you say about the opposition, this is still a team competing for a World Cup qualifying spot, and scoring 9 is obviously diabolical in any game.
But as well, I would like to preface this, by the way, just not to, totally, shame Ronaldo's name, obviously. We need to remember that this guy also did put Portugal on the map. So before him, I looked this up. They had qualified to 3 Euros and 3 World Cups in their entire history before 2004. Since 2004, they've qualified for every World Cup and every Euros, winning 1 in 2016, making the final in 2004, losing obviously to Greece, which, hilarious. But anyways, he is obviously Portugal's all-time best player, their record goal scorer, their talisman, whatever. So this is not by no means meant to discredit what he's done for the Portuguese team, because without him, Portugal would probably be on the level of like Cameroon or something. But the point is, now it gets to a point where if he's not contributing, because today it's modern football, and that's getting mentioned earlier, one of the big issues with Ronaldo, especially when they play against the bigger teams, is his lack of mobility and pressing, which in the modern game, obviously, you need to have a semblance of a press or whatever. I'm not saying you need to be insane. Like, for example, Lewandowski at Barca is pretty slow. He's not as mobile as he used to be. But Lewandowski presses decently well for what the team needs, whereas Ronaldo doesn't at all. And against the bigger teams in the World Cup, that will be an issue.
Yeah, and as a resident Ronaldo fan myself, you can definitely take a step back and have an unbiased opinion on that. Because when a player in modern football doesn't press at all, it's as if Portugal are playing with 10 men for a majority of the game, right? Especially because Ronaldo, for the most part, when he is subbed off, isn't subbed off until very late in the game because of Roberto Martinez and obviously his desire to keep Ronaldo on the field. And so for a majority of these games, Ronaldo, it's as if Portugal are playing as 10 men. Ronaldo will bag a goal. He has the second highest XG in European qualifications for the World Cup, right behind Haaland, for example, with a little over 6 XG. So he's still being a threat for scoring goals, and when Portugal get into that final third, but that midfield area, the defensive area, he's not really contributing much. Which I think overall in the World Cup specifically, when you have teams like Spain who want to press you, teams like France, like you're gonna struggle if that's the style that you want to play.
Yeah, well, essentially as well, one thing we need to talk about is that right now this isn't so Portugal have had teams in the Ronaldo era that have not been necessarily the greatest. Like for example, the Euro 2016 squad that they won with is by no means as talented as the squad they have now, but they were able to win back then. Why? Mainly because obviously not Ronaldo himself, but Ronaldo obviously did a lot of the carrying for that team. Scored goals in the group stage. I don't believe. Yeah, he scored against Wales in the semifinal. To be fair, in the final he was injured, but he was obviously a leader on the field, off the field, whatever. But Ronaldo was also 30 back then. The issue now is that this is Portugal's most talented squad, probably. I'd say probably ever. I know they've had squads that had Figo and Deco and all that, but this team right now has the likes of. Yeah, he's on the decline, but Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, João Neves, Vitinha, who won the Champions League obviously with PSG, Gonçalo Ramos, who obviously won the Champions League with PSG. You have Rafa Leao, you have Nuno Mendes, I know he's a bit past it now and is a bit older, but obviously you have Ruben Diaz, you have Cancelo. You have a team there that is very good. That's the thing. So I guess the point now where you have to start asking, at what point do they need to start phasing him out? And not completely. I'm not going to say they shouldn't call up Ronaldo at all, because even if he doesn't play, you still need someone like a Ronaldo to, support the team emotionally, blah, 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 and scream like a cheerleader on the side, just like he did against France. But anyways, now it's time to discuss essentially why it would probably be a good idea to phase him out. Now, one of the biggest reasons I mentioned earlier was obviously the pressing. Now, against smaller teams, like say Portugal were to play against, let's say maybe Japan, a Cameroon, a Senegal, teams who are obviously good but not at like the elite level, they could get away with having Ronaldo in the starting lineup. That's fine. But if they're playing against teams like, let's say, Spain, who presses a lot, and no one mentioned that Nations League, that shit's not a trophy, that shit's a glorified friendly. But anyways, when you play against Spain or against France or Germany, any of these teams that are gonna press you, then having Ronaldo becomes very difficult because it's going to leave gaps in the midfield, because if he's not pressing, the midfield is going to have to push up to aid the press, which leaves gaps in the midfield that a lot of these teams will be able to exploit. Now, that being said, he's still useful in the sense that in these specific games, say Portugal need a goal or down one goal or maybe the game's tied, you can bring him on. He's still a very big threat from corners, obviously penalties, which they'll always get because it's Ronaldo. Obviously, he's a fox in the box at this point in his career, so he can, pull up and just get one little goal here and there. But that's more, I'd say, as an impact sub. I wouldn't start him in these games. Now, in the smaller games, when teams don't press you as much, yeah, he could still start, I'd say. That's not an issue. But against the bigger teams, I would not start him personally.
Yeah, I think that's his number one con. And I think it would be really interesting to know what the Portuguese fans think about Ronaldo at the current moment in time. Because again, I think you can separate the two and say, on the one hand, the greatest Portuguese player of all time, one of the greatest players of all time, wherever your stance is, you cannot deny this. But on the other hand, you're thinking, okay, 2026, World Cup, North America. Some view this Portuguese side as a quote-unquote golden generation, because you have a lot of players in certain positions that are the best in those positions, right? Like Bruno Fernandes, for example, is one of the best in his position. Nuno Mendes is the best in his position. Vitinha is one of the best in his position. So
key word, one of, because he's not better than Pedri. But yeah, keep going.
So the question then becomes, if you're a Portuguese fan, whether you're from Portugal or not, is it time to put your nostalgia and pride to the side and capitalize on this golden generation? Because slowly, players like a Ruben Neves, who's still doing it at a high level, for example, players like him will get old. By the next World Cup, I think he's what right now, 29 maybe?
Ruben Neves, yeah. Oh, I forgot about him as well. Yeah, he's a 29, 30, something like that.
He'll be 34 by the next World Cup. Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes will be 35. He's 31.
Out of it.
Nuno Mendes right now is in his prime. Like, he's still 25, 26. Not saying he's not going to be washed at 30, I'm assuming. But, he's at his peak right now.
Right.
I mean, we can't also forget they have João Felix. I know he's also in the Saudi league now. But you can't forget they also have João Felix, who, doesn't always show it, but is very talented.
On his day is
very
player.
talented. But
it would be interesting to know how the Portuguese fans feel about it. And Ibrahim, you came ready with some statistics for us.
I did, my friend. I did. Now, according to a poll by, I'm gonna butcher this name, but Aximage. I'm assuming that's a Portuguese news outlet, but I probably butchered the name. 48% of Portuguese fans think Ronaldo still has the conditions to start for Portugal. The keyword here is the 48%. The other 52%, 29% believe that he should not start. 11% thought he shouldn't even be called up. 12% had no opinion whatsoever. Now, that's one source. And another source, in Mercado de Futebol, another Portuguese news outlet, 59% of people believe he should still be a starter. So it's very, I'd say, a divisive topic. It doesn't really swing majorly in the favor of one or the other. So that's why I believe, like I said, it really depends on the context of the opponents they're playing against, at what point in the game, like what the game necessitates, really, if they need a goal. Like, say they're up by 1 or 2 goals or whatever, I would take him off and bring a defender because, he's not going to defend. He's not going to press. If they need a goal and say he's not starting, you bring him on because he can still get you a goal, whatever. We saw against Spain, for example, pretty much didn't do anything the whole game, but still popped up with a goal. Why? Because his positioning is still very elite in the box. He's still a very big threat in the box. So you bring him on for cases like that. That's why I believe it's so divided amongst Portuguese fans. Me personally, I would just use the formula of, against the bigger teams, bench/super sub. Against the smaller teams, start him. That's what I personally think Portugal should do. Will they do it? No, because Roberto Martinez is a bald pansy who cannot bench Ronaldo.
Well, I do think that his he has a lot more influence on whether he starts or not on the manager, I would say. And Ronaldo, especially given recent interviews, has been very vocal about, my physical age is different than my genetic age or whatever.
He called himself perfect, by the way. He said in the Piers Morgan interview, he said, I'm perfect. He said that. He also said that the World Cup is not his dream, even though he's previously said it's been his dream plenty of times, and also said he plans to marry Georgina during the summer after the World Cup with the trophy. So, I mean, that guy's an egomaniac, bro. The guy needs to be sedated and put in like a straitjacket and like an asylum. He's not normal, bro. You know what this guy said? He said one of my inspirations, like one of the guys I like compare myself with or like I take, inspiration from is LeBron James, right? Because obviously they're the same age, both go to their sport, whatever. He could have said that, moved on. He said, yeah, LeBron James, but I also believe I have more hair than him.
Or, yeah, his hair, yeah.
Which, okay, yeah, like fair, obviously, but like, you know what I mean?
You didn't need to say it, yeah.
He's out here saying David Beckham is, handsome, but I am perfect. So, like, yeah, anyways, just a side tangent, but yeah.
So we pushed the question on to you, the viewers. Is Ronaldo's time as a Portuguese starter over? Should he put his pride to the side and do it for the good of the Portuguese people and the team? Because, again, that's a very talented squad.
Do it for the kids, Ronaldo.
If they don't make it to the finals, that squad should be at least getting to a semifinals of the World Cup, in my honest opinion. Should Ronaldo start? Should he not start? And what should his role be for the team? That is up to you guys in the comments. One final question, Brahim. Can I touch your abs?
No.
All right, guys.
I don't have abs, unfortunately. You know what I mean? I'm gluttonous, bro. I'm Kirby. Yeah.
Kirby. Guys, if you guys like Basement Ballers, go check us out on all of our platforms. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Look up Basement Ballers. You'll see his face. You'll see my face. And join the Ballers Academy Discord with over 160 of you guys talking about football. It'll be the place to be for the World Cup. Without further ado, Kareem, Ibrahim, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.